Hello and welcome. This is another post-shower book talk, and I had some inspiration while I was taking the shower. Basically, I wanted to talk about this book. This is Alberta and Jacob by Cora Sandel. This was originally written in Norwegian. I think it was published in 1926, and it was translated into the English version by Elizabeth Rokkan. And I actually read this book together with Marilyn Maya Mendoza, the baby boomer booktuber, and the reading experience was a fun one. And this book was fun. It was fun not in the sense that this book is thrilling with, I don't know, dragons and explosions or spies or whatever, but it was fun in the sense that this book explores a person's personality really well, and that person happens to be someone who suffers from very low self-esteem, very low self-worth. She thinks she's not pretty enough, she's not smart, she's not talented, she's not sociable enough, she's just not enough. Her name is Alberta, and she lives in a small provincial town that is somewhat isolated in northern Norway. So the time is the time setting is somewhere at the turn of the 20th century, and at that time, young ladies are sort of expected to sort of take care of themselves, be ladylike, and just make sure that they take care of their physical appearance and also their reputation in order for them to enter into a good marriage to secure their future. And basically that is kind of like what Alberta in this book is facing. Alberta, who is living in that town, she's facing this kind of future prospect. Anyway, that is kind of like the conventional prospect that other young ladies around the age of Alberta would face anyway. But another thing that we sort of discover from this book also is that Alberta, she's actually living with her parents and also her brother. Now, one thing that we find out about her family is that it is not a happy family. Her father tends to get into this like really unpredictable bouts of rage. Meanwhile, her mom, she is so controlling. She is not very like warm to her daughter. She is quite cold, and she's controlling in the sense that she always hopes that Alberta would just take care of her appearance. She wants Alberta to always look ladylike and just pretty much care about all of those things, just so that Alberta can make herself more sort of like marketable to the young men, in the hopes that she would get into a good marriage and that she would hopefully get a good life from that. But this obviously does not jive well with Alberta. Not only her family life is really miserable, like she's so unhappy living at home, she is also facing this kind of prospect. When in fact Alberta is someone who, because of the unhappiness that she has in her home, she really wants to explore more beyond the borders of her small town. But because she's also a young woman at her age at that time, she does not exactly have a lot of choices. She does not have a lot of options in life. So basically this novel sort of like explores the kinds of internal conflicts that Alberta has in regards to her family, and also in regards to what she personally really wants. And how she hopes to attain the things that she really wants. And I personally think that this book really portrays Alberta as someone who is very human, someone who is honestly, I think it's quite fascinating because, like I said earlier, Alberta herself, she thinks that she is not pretty enough. She's just not enough. She thinks of herself as inadequate, and you could imagine that this very likely comes from her interaction with her mom, who is always controlling and very, very critical of Alberta in regards to who she is as an individual, and it makes total sense that Alberta would feel really stifled in that small town, and she longs for freedom very, very much. Now, one thing I really like about this book is that I am personally biased towards books that are about protagonists with low self-esteem because I feel that books with such kinds of protagonists, when the character has low self-esteem, it means that they have like this really big room for improvement, and with that room of improvement, with that size for the room of improvement, it means that there are a lot of possibilities in terms of what kind of directions the story could take. The story can certainly become quite wild. The character would definitely have to face like plenty of choices that they could take, and as readers it always feels good to be surprised in some ways or another. And on top of that, characters who are insecure about themselves, over the course of the stories, it's very likely that the character is going to learn something about themselves and hopefully improve themselves in some way or another, and that is, I would say, almost always inspiring, and I enjoy that kind of feeling obviously. And I must say that this book certainly brings out that kind of feeling for me. I really enjoy to see Alberta's mental and psychological development trajectory in this book. I really enjoy to see the path that she, the small choices, the paths that she took along the course as this book progresses. Now, this book, like I said earlier, it's a really quiet book. There isn't much action going on, and that's because this book pretty much just focuses on what is going on with Alberta inside her head and inside her soul. It focuses on the kinds of choices that Alberta has to make. It also focuses a lot on the kinds of insecurities that Alberta has to face, the kinds of fears and anxieties that she has to deal with in order to sort of move forward in a way. And from there she has to make some choice, whether she deals with the fear or she runs away. And it's really exciting to see what kinds of choices that she makes whenever she gets into different kinds of situations in this book, like when she goes to a social event or when she interacts with her family. It's just really interesting to note basically the kinds of choices that illustrates what kind of a person Alberta is in this book, and I personally like that. I think it's exciting. Also, another thing about this book is I kind of like the way that this book really focuses on temperature differences in order to highlight how Alberta is feeling inside. One thing that I noticed is that this book focuses a lot on the portrayals of the cold and also warmth, and sort of like comparing these two sensations. And basically whenever cold appears in this book, it would mean that Alberta is in a bad state, mentally and emotionally. So cold pretty much sort of represents the feeling of being stifled, unhappiness, depressive mood, low low emotions. That's what cold represents. And in contrast, there would also be warmth in this book, and warmth what brings about the sense of freedom, happiness, spirit, zeal for life. And it's Alberta is all she's almost always flip-flopping between these two different situations, because obviously physically she would be exposed to these kinds of temperatures in in real life. Like, for example, she lives in that town and it's winter, so she's always exposed to cold. And when she is exposed to that cold temperature, we sort of sees how it affects Alberta mentally and also emotionally. She would get into this depressive mood, and she would be like really, she would feel really shitty. And then, for example, she is exposed to something warm. In that scene, usually is also accompanied by some kind of a change in Alberta's attitudes, either towards herself or towards other people or towards her surrounding. So I think this kind of writing style, it really brings out this, it makes it even more clear what kind of emotions Alberta is experiencing, and it makes it really easy to just sort of relate to Alberta, to really understand her, because it's cold and warmth is something that is really easy to imagine, as opposed to feeling inadequate because you're not pretty enough. Because sometimes, when the reader comes from a different era or a different gender, they may not have to care about that. But feeling cold is something that I would say everyone can understand. So yeah, there's definitely those kinds of association going on with this book, and I really like the way that it stays loyal to that kind of association. It is not something that the book does only at a particular portion of this book, but it also does that all the way throughout until the end. Just a bit of extension of that also. This book is also written in a chronological manner, and the events are arranged in such chronological manner. So when we start at the beginning of this book, the season is winter, so it's really cold, and then it moves on towards summer. No, not summer. It moves on towards spring, and then from spring it goes to summer, and from summer it goes to autumn. And with this change of seasons, we also have this change of temperature, and from there we could sort of see the ups and downs in terms of Alberta's emotional state, and how it sort of relates back to her experience and her I would say her learning curve, and all of these things are so interrelated to one another. I think it's really fascinating, and I just really love the way that it all of these elements just connect with one another. Now I just want to say that this book sort of ends near the winter again, so it's like there is a cycle going on here. But I personally liked the way this book ends. I like the kind of resolution that the book decides to give on Alberta. And I'm not going to tell you what kind of resolution is that, but I would say that it's not something that I personally expected. But at the same time, I don't feel surprised by it. I feel that it's logical. I feel that it makes sense. But I was not surprised. And but yeah, I like it. In a way, it sort of fits that tone of this book being a quiet book, a book in which it doesn't try to be epic, but rather it just shows sort of like just one portion of a person's life. Basically, this book is like a series of slice of life, if you want to look at it that way. So yeah, overall I like this book. I think this is a wonderful book. The writing is awesome, and I am honestly quite surprised that this book is not known more. Like, this book is not more famous. I don't understand why. Like, I think this book has has what it takes to be a famous book. I think everyone should read this. It's a really lovely book about a person who is just so insecure about herself, and it's a book about a person with low self-esteem, and that's always good, and almost always good. But yeah, not that I have any kinds of expectation or whatever, but I don't know, I don't think that me talking about this book is going to make this book more famous. But who knows, right? Who knows if some of the persons with better reach, better influence, saw this video and decides to read this book and like the book and decides to do something about it, and maybe the book will be even more known. But yeah, anyway, that was just fantasy. So yeah, this is a wonderful book, and I'm glad I have read it, and I'll see you guys again in a different video. So until then, take care. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.